TrueStory Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
TrueStory Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. The first light of dawn had barely broken over Portland's skyline when Harper Evans sprinted down Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard, her laptop satchel bouncing against her side. The streets hummed with early commuters, cyclists weaving through traffic, joggers exhaling puffs of mist, and the occasional skateboarder gliding past. Harper's mind replayed her to-do list for the day, memorize the new seasonal menu, shadow the barista on shift, and, most important, make a flawless first impression at Redwood Roasters. She rounded the corner, nearly tipping her balance when the storefront's neon logo blazed into view, the silhouette of a towering redwood tree encircled by curling wisps of steam. Pushing through the glass door, Harper was greeted by a symphony of scent and sound, the nutty aroma of freshly ground beans, the hiss of steam wands, and the steady thump of bass from a local indie playlist. The interior walls were clad in reclaimed wood planks. Strings of Edison bulbs cast a warm glow over communal tables and cozy nooks. A queue of half-asleep patrons snaked from the counter toward the door, each clutching smartphones and reusable cups. Behind the bar, veteran baristas moved with practiced precision, tamping, pouring, polishing latte art as effortlessly as breathing. At the center of this morning ritual stood Cole Reed, Redwood Roasters' shift manager. He was tall, with neatly trimmed dark hair and an expression so calm it bordered on inscrutable. His crisp denim shirt bore a single coffee stain, evidence of lean years working double shifts in tiny cafes, but his posture remained unruffled. Today, he balanced a wooden tray holding 3 steaming lattes, each marked with a single heart of velvety foam. He ducked his chin and stepped forward, weaving through the crowd with the poise of someone who had mastered every inch of this space. Harper paused in the doorway, heart pounding. Her first day on the job, and already she felt the familiar flutter of excitement laced with nerves. She paused to draw in a steadying breath of coffee-rich air, then tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and slipped on her maroon apron. The baristas glanced her way. A few offered encouraging nods, while others returned to their stations without a word. She was determined to prove she belonged here. Harper took 3 hurried steps toward the back of the line, and that's when fate intervened. Cole, eyes fixed on the path ahead, advanced just as Harper pivoted to secure her place. Their collision was hardly earth-shattering, but everyone felt it. Foam splashed across Harper's sleeve, and a brown arc of latte painted itself across Cole's crisp denim. The tray wobbled in his hand, and 2 of the mugs teetered alarmingly close to the edge. "Oh," Harper gasped, freezing in place. Her pulse kicked up a notch as she realized what she'd done. Cole's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a heartbeat the cafe held its collective breath. Then his gaze shifted downward, taking in the latte stains slowly soaking through his shirt. He let out a controlled sigh and turned back to Harper, his eyes cool but not unkind. "Watch where you're going," he said, voice low enough that only Harper could hear. A bead of foam clung to his collarbone, dripping onto his chest as if marking a victim's scars. Harper's cheeks flamed. I'm so sorry," she stammered, stepping forward as if to help wipe the spill away. But Cole raised a hand, warding her off. "Accidents happen," he continued, holstering his annoyance into a polite edge. He glanced around to see curious onlookers, some frowning, some intrigued, before returning his attention to Harper. "Just be more careful." He turned and strode toward the sink, leaving Harper blinking in the latte spray. She swallowed hard, mortified by the attention. Her first impression at Redwood Roasters, she thought, of all the things it could have been. Why did it have to be this? She watched as Cole rinsed the stained portion of his shirt under a gentle spray of water, then dabbed at it with a bar towel. The foam, once creamy white, now looked almost cruel against the dark denim. Despite her embarrassment, Harper couldn't help but notice how composed he remained, No dramatic outburst, no public shaming. Just quiet efficiency. A sympathetic barista handed Cole a fresh shirt from a drawer beneath the counter. He nodded in thanks and headed off to the employee restroom to change. Harper stood, rooted to the spot, replaying the moment in her mind. She had wanted to make a splash on day one, just not like this. Gradually, the other customers resumed their morning routines. The line moved forward. Murmurs passed from table to table. Did you see that? Is he mad at her? I love this place, but drama-free, please. Harper's knees trembled as she edged toward the counter. When she reached it, she looked up at the barista taking her order. Medium drip coffee, black, she said, her voice steadier now. And, I'd like to apply for barista training, please. The barista gave her a warm smile. Welcome aboard. Cole's in the restroom. He'll meet you back here in a minute to get you started. As Harper stepped aside, she realized that every new beginning carried its own challenges. Today's lesson, or perhaps warning, was never underestimate the path of a latte. She drew in a deep breath and prepared to embrace whatever the morning had in store. After all, if she could survive her first 5 minutes at Redwood Roasters, she could survive anything. Harper Evans emerged from the employee restroom, the sharp citrus scent of hand soap still lingering on her palms, and took a steadying breath. Moments earlier, she'd witnessed Cole Reed discreetly swap into a fresh shirt after their latte collision. Now, as the door swung open, she faced the full panorama of Redwood Roasters in action. Baristas shifting between steam wands and grinders, customers hunched over laptops at communal tables, and the familiar thrum of excitement that only a bustling Portland cafe could produce. A small podium stood just inside the entrance, near a whiteboard scrawled with "Welcome to the team" in chalk. Harper approached it, smoothing out her maroon apron marked with the golden Redwood logo. A clipboard bearing training notes, and her new schedule awaited her. 7:45 a.m. Morning rush shadow with Mia. 9:30 a.m. Menu quiz and milk steaming workshop. 11 a.m. Coffee brew calibration with Sam. 12 p.m. First solo order duty. Good morning. Mia, a veteran barista with a sunflower yellow bandana, slid into the spot beside Harper. Ready for your debut? Her voice was warm, masking the usual first-day nerves that every new hire, no matter how polished, secretly carried. Harper nodded, cheeks still rosy from adrenaline. I am, she replied, scanning the swift choreography of orders whizzing across the counter screen. What's our call for today's special? She wanted to show she'd studied the menu overnight, ghosting through flavor profiles of single-origin beans, syrup rotations, and pour-over techniques.
Mia smiled approvingly.
Double-shot cordido, 10-ounce oat milk latte, and a lavender honey cold brew. And for table 7, she launched into details, naming each drink's proportions and garnishes. Harper mirrored each order, repeating back sizes, milk temperatures, and latte art expectations. 10 minutes later, the lunch crowd began forming at the door. Mia ushered Harper to the register. You're on POS, point of sale. I'll handle the bar for now. Just keep an eye on the screen and repeat orders back clearly. Harper's heart thumped. She slid on latex gloves and took her position. The cafe fell into a familiar cadence. Ding of the bell. Hi there. What can I get started for you today?
Pete.
Large. She began her practiced greeting as a tall man with a trimmed beard approached, the very man she drenched in latte foam just yesterday. Cole Reed. He stood patiently behind another line of customers, reviewing a digital roster on his tablet. His shirt remained spotless, and though his expression was unreadable, Harper sensed his gaze flick against her. She slotted back a breath, channeling calm professionalism. A customer stepped forward. Harper smiled. Welcome back to Redwood Roasters. What can I get started for you today? The man cleared his throat. Medium cold brew, extra ice, and a rosemary shortbread cookie. Harper tapped the order into the touchscreen, confirming the modifiers. Anything else? She glanced up and her eyes met Cole's for the briefest instant. He offered a slight nod, friendly yet reserved. When the customer retreated to wait, Harper glanced back at Cole. He quickly checked his watch and strode behind the counter. Mia nudged Harper. Your manager's jump in. He'll cover while I handle something. Cole approached. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Harper, I need you to hop on bar duty for 2 minutes. I'm juggling a group order. He indicated a digital timer counting down for a 10-drink pickup. You've mastered the pour-over calibration, right? Harper's pulse raced. Yes, sir, Cole. I reviewed the drip ratios last night. She flicked her gaze to the row of glass coffee drippers. I'll start the next carafe. He nodded once. Keep an eye on the bloom. Let it rest for 30 seconds. Then pour in concentric circles. Maintain water level 2 inches below the spout. He pointed at her clipboard, where she'd scribbled notes. Follow those specs. Harper stepped forward, careful not to brush clothing. She placed a fresh filter, weighed the coffee grounds, and started the stopwatch. The hush in the cafe intensified for a moment as the baristas watched her rhythm, the precision of her pour. Her focus on the grounds as they rose and bloomed into that rich, caramel hue. 30 seconds later, she executed an even spiral, drawing water from the center outward and never letting it reach the filter's edge. Steam rose, and a rich, nutty aroma drifted back to her nostrils. She glanced at Cole, who gave a curt nod. Relief washed through her. Within moments, 2 more drinks came onto her tray. Mia returned, handing Harper a steaming single-origin espresso. Nitro pour next? She asked, eyes bright. Together, they tapped the nitrogen dispenser, marveling as the cascade of bubbles transformed dark coffee into a frothy marvel. During the lull that followed, Harper found herself beside Cole at the bar. He spared a glance her way. Not bad for your second shift in, he acknowledged quietly. 10 or so feet away, Mia gave Harper a reassuring thumbs up. Harper managed a small smile. Thanks. I appreciate the guidance. He studied her for a moment, then said, Keep it up. And with that, he whisked back to his managerial duties, scanning orders and adjusting staffing on his tablet. Later, at her break, Harper sank onto a bench outside. She leaned back, exhaling the Seattle rain-scented breeze. Her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate. How's day one going? She stared at the screen and typed back, Better than I ever dreamed. Minus the foam fiasco. A quick reply, You're killing it. She pocketed her phone and gazed at the cafe's warm glow through the window. Yes, the morning had kicked off with a latte collision, an unexpected test of composure, and lit any spark of tension pointing to something more. But in those small victories, nailing the pour-over, collaborating on the nitro cold brew, Harper felt the pulse of possibility. Redwood Roasters had become more than just a job. It was a place to prove herself, to learn, and maybe, just maybe, to thrive. As she rose to clock back in, she squared her shoulders. Tomorrow would bring a new rush, another round of orders, and no doubt more challenges. But she was ready to face each one, because in this cafe, every drop of coffee was a chance to start fresh. The midday lull at Redwood Roasters was a deceptive calm. Outside, a rare Pacific Northwest sun broke free from morning mist, pushing temperatures into unseasonable warmth. Inside, the cafe's climate control debate had reached full boil. As the line for cold brews lengthened, Harper Evans found herself caught in an unexpected office showdown. Fan zone versus AC zone. Once the morning rush subsided, Mia gathered the baristas near the giant paddle fan stationed at the back. Team Fan Zone assemble, she declared, flipping the fan switch. A rush of cool air swept over their ankles, and a handful of staff let out appreciative sighs. Harper, wiping down the espresso station, paused to observe. Around her, half the cafe's team stepped toward the fan. Unoiled shirts clung to damp skin, while the other half hovered under the air conditioner vent, rubbing goosebumps off their arms. Cole Reed appeared at the bar's threshold, surveying the turf war with a neutral stare. He tapped open his tablet and checked the surface temperature readout, 78 degrees Fahrenheit by the registers. A cozy 73 degrees Fahrenheit under the vents, and a breezy 75 degrees Fahrenheit at the fan's whim. He set the tablet aside with a quiet click and turned to Harper. "Group meeting in 2, he said, voice low but carrying authority. "We need one unified cafe temperature, stat." Harper followed him to the center island where the staff gathered. Naomi Brooks, Cole's close colleague, stood arms crossed under the strongest vent breeze. Her porcelain white polo shirt was puffed slightly by the cold air. "I'm freezing," she said, her breath visible in the vent's draft. "AC zone all the way." Mia, wiping foam off a used pitcher, shot back. "I'm roasting over here. Fan zone for life." A chorus of nods and murmurs rippled through her supporters. Cole raised a hand. Okay. We're not running an Arctic lodge or a sauna." He glanced at the thermostat on the wall. "Portland summers may surprise us, but so do our customers. We need a setting that keeps drinks at peak temp and guests comfortable." Harper swallowed. Her first instinct was to side with fan zone. She was still acclimating, and the saxophone of humidity made her shirt stick uncomfortably. But the AC had kept the cafe artificially frigid all morning, sending shivers down the throats of a few colleagues and causing steamed milk to skid across the jugs. "Let's find a compromise," Harper ventured, surprising herself. "What if we set the thermostat to 74 degrees Fahrenheit, keep the main unit running sparingly, and use the paddle fan to circulate air? It's enough cool without overdoing it." A hush fell over the group. Naomi glanced at Mia, both raising an eyebrow at the newcomer's suggestion. Cole looked at Harper, expression unreadable. 74 degrees Fahrenheit, he repeated. "I like it. That's halfway. Harper, can you pilot that? You're on thermostat duty for the day." Mia clapped Harper on the shoulder. "Nice call." Naomi exhaled, the plume melting in the balanced air.
"Fine," she conceded.
"But if I catch a chill, I'm dialing it back." Harper tapped the digital control pad. The display blinked from 70 degrees Fahrenheit down to 74 degrees Fahrenheit, then held steady. She flipped the overhead fan to medium, sending a gentle breeze throughout the space. The baristas took their positions, some near the vents, now slightly less frosty, others around the fan, now modestly cooled but far from swampy. A ripple of satisfaction passed through the team. Orders resumed, espresso flowed uninterrupted, and even the customers seemed oblivious to the erstwhile climate conflict. Harper steered a tray of iced lattes to a waiting couple. The cold foam swirled with lavender syrup. She glanced back at the bar. Cole adjusted his tablet, confirming the new temperature held steady. He caught her eye and offered a small nod of approval. Later, during a quiet lull, Harper refilled the sugar station. Mia leaned over. "You're a natural at this." Harper shrugged, then grinned, just trying not to melt or shiver. Out of the corner of her eye, Harper saw Naomi slip off her jacket. She folded it and draped it over the highest bar stool. "Noted," she said, smiling conspiratorially. Cole reemerged from the back room, holding his tablet. "Team briefing at 3, but for now, thanks."
He paused.
"Harper, nice thinking. Keep it up." As he stepped away, Harper realized the cafe's true thermostat wasn't the digital controller on the wall, but the balance of every staff member's comfort. In trending the middle path, she'd not only tamed the temperature, but won a foothold of trust among her colleagues and the once unapproachable manager. A small victory, perhaps, but in the world of specialty coffee, every degree counts. A week into her tenure at Redwood Roasters, Harper Evans found herself on the cusp of routine. She no longer stumbled over the POS touchscreen. Her pour-over technique had earned genuine nods of approval, and, even more surprisingly, she'd weathered that infamous climate showdown with confidence. Yet, beneath her steady exterior, she carried the same familiar undercurrent of nerves every time she clocked in. The cafe was her new proving ground, and she was determined to rise to every challenge. That Friday evening, the third wave of customers was tapering off. Harper wiped down the final vacant table near the window, where the last orange rays of sunset streamed through. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the brick sidewalk. Music from a nearby food truck festival drifted through the open door, steel drums and distant laughter blending with the aroma of artisanal chocolate brownies. Harper glanced at the clock. 8:45 p.m. 15 minutes until closing. She rounded up menus, stacked chairs, and prepared to tackle the espresso machine's end-of-day purge. Across the counter, Mia and Sam, the barista on closing duty, exchanged playful banter. Naomi, resplendent in a thick-knit cardigan, was restocking the condiment rail. Cole Reed appeared from the back office, dressed down now in a charcoal t-shirt and jeans. He glanced around, satisfied the floor was spotless, then moved to the small corner shelf reserved for employee belongings. A soft thud echoed as something landed on the shelf, a neatly folded, charcoal gray wool scarf. Draped over it was a small sticky note, inked in Cole's precise script. Harper, you left this behind. Nights are cooler now. Stay warm.
C.
Harper's breath caught in her throat. That scarf, her favorite accessory since moving to Portland. She'd slung it over a chair earlier in the day and completely forgotten it under the flurry of rush hour latte art. She hadn't expected him to notice, much less return it. Her stomach flip-flopped as she approached. Cole stood with one hand in his pocket, gaze fixed on the end-of-day checklist. Mia caught Harper's wide-eyed look and nudged her with an encouraging grin. Harper reached out, her fingers brushing the soft merino wool. It felt warmer than any store-bought tag, almost like a promise. She unfolded it gently, reading the note again, savoring the curve of that signature initial. Thank you, she managed, voice small. I didn't even realize I'd lost it. Cole finally turned, offering a faint smile. Not the curt nod of their initial collision, but something softer. You seemed cold this morning, he said, nodding toward the doorway, where a chill breeze had slipped in. Thought you could use it back. Harper wrapped the scarf around her neck, pulling it snug. Its familiar weight settled over her shoulders, and she realized how much she'd missed it today, how the lingering coolness had made her shiver during her morning shift.
Now.
Warmed by more than just wool, she felt a curious bloom of gratitude. Seriously, I appreciate it, she said, finding her voice. It's perfect timing. He ducked his head, a hint of relief in his expression. Good. I'm glad. Then, checking his watch, he added, 10 more minutes before close. I'll handle the machine drains. You can finish the sweep. Harper nodded, heart still fluttering. She grabbed the broom, but her movement slowed, savoring the moment.
Mia Lindin.
Smooth move, she whispered. Harper flushed, but couldn't stop herself from smiling. Moments later, the cafe's lights dimmed to a softer glow as Cole guided the last customer out the door. He locked up beside her, then approached the espresso machine. His steady hands worked the levers and dials with quiet focus. Harper watched from across the counter, the glow of the cleaning unit reflecting off her scarf, its fibers catching each flicker of light. As he finished, Cole straightened and offered Harper a cup of the house blend. On me. Consider it a weekend kickoff. Harper accepted, savoring that first sip of dark, syrupy roast. It was richer than usual, with subtle notes of cherry and toasted hazelnut dancing on her tongue. This is amazing, she said, reaching for the small glass carafe of cream. Cole shrugged modestly. I've been experimenting with a coarser grind, helps bring out the sweetness. It's a work in progress. She cradled the cup in her hands, allowing the warmth to seep into her fingers. Well, it's working. Thank you for the scarf, for this coffee, for noticing. Cole's gaze met hers. Just glad you didn't freeze. There was an awkward pause. Then he cleared his throat. Systems shutting down. You good to lock up? Harper nodded, winding her scarf one more turn. Together, they moved through the closing routine, extinguishing the hanging lamps, setting the security alarm, and flipping the open sign to closed. Outside, the street was emptying, and the air had cooled significantly. As they walked to the staff exit, Harper's breath escaped in little clouds. She shoved her hands into her pockets, the scarf still snug around her neck. Cole pulled the door closed behind them. Hey, he said, pausing. Harper turned toward him. If you ever forget something again, I'll take that as my cue to come visit. She laughed softly, the sound fragile in the quiet street. I'll be more careful. But thank you for looking out. Anytime, he replied, sliding his hands into his own pockets. Have a good weekend, Harper. You too, she answered. He nodded once, a silent goodbye, and walked off toward the parking lot. Harper watched him go, then slipped her phone from her pocket and texted Mia. You will not believe what just happened. Pulling her scarf tighter, she headed home with a light heart. The secret scarf wrapped around more than just her neck. It was a tangible sign that beneath Cole Reed's cool exterior lay authentic warmth, just waiting to be discovered. The forecast had promised clear skies for the weekend, but Portland weather rarely adhered to predictions. On Sunday afternoon, Harper Evans stepped out of her apartment carrying a canvas tote filled with groceries, a loaf of rosemary bread, a carton of oat milk, and fresh basil leaves clinging to their stems. A gentle sprinkle began as she walked toward the bus stop, droplets dancing on the pavement. She shrugged, unzipping her lightweight jacket, and hurried on. After all, a little rain was part of the city's charm. By the time she reached the corner near Redwood Roasters, the drizzle had turned into a steady downpour. Cars sprayed arcs of water as they passed, and the sidewalk shimmered under a sheet of gray clouds. Harper slipped on her hood and ducked under the cafe's awning for shelter, clutching her tote close to keep the groceries dry.
Inside.
The lights were dimmed for Sunday service, soft acoustic guitar playing over the speakers. A few customers huddled over books or laptops, warmed by steaming mugs.
Mia,
perched on a high stool behind the counter, looked up and waved. Hey, Harper. Lost your way home already? Harper smiled, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she held. Rain's picking up. I guess Sunday errands got drenched.
Mia laughed.
Portland rite of passage. Wait it out, or get predictably soaked. Harper checked her phone, still 20 minutes until the next bus. She tapped her toes, watching raindrops race down the glass. That's when she spotted him. Cole Reed, striding down the sidewalk just beyond the door, no umbrella, no hood, just his familiar charcoal t-shirt and jeans. His hand was outstretched over his head, palm facing down, as a feeble shield. Water dripped from his hairline, soaking the collar of his shirt. Harper's pulse stuttered. Without thinking, she grabbed the spare umbrella from behind the counter, the same navy blue one she'd used during her first week, and dashed outside. Cole, she called, stepping into the rain. The wind tugged at her hood, rain pelting her arms. He paused, eyes widening at her approach. She swung the umbrella over both their heads. You need this more than I do, she shouted over the patter of rain. He blinked, water dripping from the tip of his nose. Harper, you got soaked. Not nearly as much as you, she interrupted, stepping closer. The umbrella was barely big enough for one, let alone two. Their shoulders brushed, and she tried not to flinch as the tip of his scarf, still neatly tucked inside her jacket, brushed her neck. He reached up, grasping the umbrella handle, adjusting its angle. Thanks, he said, voice low. The wind snatched the word and carried it away, but she heard it all the same. Together, they jogged down the block toward the bus stop, the umbrella tilting with each gust. Cars whooshed past, sending up walls of mist that soaked their lower legs. Harper navigated the curb, her heart hammering at the close quarters. You really didn't have to, he called back, arms crossing as he kept dry under the canopy. She laughed, throat tight. Would you have left me here to become a drown latte? He offered a reluctant grin, water beading on his eyelashes. Guilty as charged. They arrived at the bus shelter, a metal bench under a glass canopy that collected endless rivulets. A single mother and her daughter sat with a stack of picture books, both craning necks at Harper and Cole. He held the umbrella above her more fully now, shifting to cover her head. She hesitated. You sure you're okay? He kicked at a puddle, splashing water onto his soaked sneakers. I'll live. How about you? She tucked damp strands of hair behind her ear. I'll manage. Umbrella saved me. Thanks. The bus rolled in, brake lights glowing. Harper swiped her transit card and stepped aboard. Cole followed. Inside, the warmth from the heating vents met them, much needed after the chill. Harper scanned for seats, her eyes landing on an empty pair midway back. She waved him over. Once seated, Harper settled the umbrella upright between them. Drops of water dripped onto the floor, creating miniature puddles. Cole stretched his legs. "I'm headed to the shop," he said, half to himself. Harper leaned forward. "Same here. I was grabbing ingredients for a basil flatbread, figured I'd bake this afternoon." His gaze softened.
Nice.
"Thought you might be snowed out." She shrugged, smiling. "Snowed in by rain, then. But I like cooking on Sundays." The bus lurched forward, and Harper held onto the seat in front. She looked sideways at him, the gold glint of his watch, the lines at the corner of his eyes. Despite the damp, the escape from coffee shop duties had given this moment a different flavor, something personal. They rode silently for a moment, the only sounds the hum of the engine and wheels on wet pavement. Harper heard Cole's steady exhale and realized they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Once adversaries in the climate war, now reluctant travel companions. Soon, they reached the stop outside Redwood Roasters. The neon redwood tree shimmered through the rain. Harper slipped off her hood. Droplets clung to her lashes. She turned to him. "Well, here we are." He rose, bracing himself against the swaying bus. With a polite nod, he ducked beneath the umbrella and stepped off. Harper followed. The canopy overhead dripped in slow-motion droplets. At the door, Cole paused. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, gesturing at the umbrella. She zipped her jacket, resting her hand on the handle.
Sure.
"Just, let's keep our feet drier next time, okay?" He chuckled, the sound surprisingly bright. "Deal." They set off together down the awning-lit walkway. Cole let her lead. The umbrella tilted, so both remained sheltered. As they approached the employee entrance, Harper slipped off her hood again and extended the umbrella's reach to cover Cole's shoulders fully. He caught her eye. "You know," he said softly, "you really didn't have to chase me out there." She shrugged, tucking the umbrella strap into her to-go bag. "Coffee shop karma. Next time, I'll just text you." He offered a half-smile, gaze lingering on hers. "I'll look forward to that." Inside the warm glow of Redwood Roasters, rain pattered against the glass. Harper peeled off her jacket and hung the umbrella on its hook by the door. Cole retrieved a towel from the back room and handed it to her. She dried her hair with a grateful hum, then watched as he draped it over his shoulders, an unspoken reminder of the scarf, the umbrella, and the moments they'd shared. In the hush of the cafe's closing hours, Harper realized that a simple gesture, a shared umbrella in a Portland downpour, had shifted something between them. It wasn't just about keeping dry. It was about showing up for each other. And as the last drops of rain slid off the windows, she felt a spark of anticipation for whatever came next, not just under an umbrella, but in the unfolding story of Redwood Roasters. By Monday morning, Harper Evans had resigned herself to a caffeine-fueled routine at Redwood Roasters. But she wasn't prepared for the surprise waiting at her barista station. When she arrived for her 7 a.m. shift, bleary-eyed but determined, she discovered 3 cappuccinos lined up neatly on the counter. Each was adorned with delicate foam art, a simple leaf motif, and atop each cup rested a small square of parchment paper. Curious, Harper picked up the first note. "Good morning, sunshine. Let this cup brighten your day." She glanced around. Cole Reed was nowhere in sight, the counter stretched empty behind her. Mia called out from the back, stacking mugs. "Already making friends?" she teased, winking. Harper smiled and carried the first cappuccino to table 5. The regular there, Mrs. Gonzalez, beamed at the gesture. "How thoughtful," she exclaimed, cupping her hands around the mug. Harper poured steamed milk, just enough to swirl the foam leaf into sharp relief, and watched Mrs. Gonzalez take her first grateful sip. Back behind the bar, Harper examined the second note. "Rise and grind. Your hard work doesn't go unnoticed." She gripped the cup, feeling a subtle warmth beyond the beverage itself. Who could be so attentive? Naomi Brooks, notorious for her iced Americanos, was on Monday morning. Harper knew the note was meant for her. She placed the cappuccino before Naomi, who paused mid-text message, looked up in surprise, and traced the foam leaf with her fingertip. A stunned smile spread across her face. "This is so unexpected," Naomi said softly. "Thank you." Harper returned to the station to find the third note. "Keep smiling. You make this place better." She traced the flowing script, struck by its sincerity. It couldn't be anyone but Cole. Only he could know exactly which note would resonate. Was she reading too much into it? Her cheeks warmed at the thought as she delivered the final cappuccino to the manager's station, currently vacant. She heard footsteps behind her. Cole appeared, sliding into his chair. His expression was neutral.
"Morning," he said.
Harper set the cup down. "Morning. Did you do this?" she asked, motioning toward the 3 cappuccinos. He raised an eyebrow, as if weighing his answer. Finally, he said, "I saw them waiting at your station and thought, why not brighten everyone's day?" He gestured to the cups. "A little extra foam art, a few words." Harper studied him. There was no arrogance in his tone, just a quiet kindness that caught her off guard. She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you. It really meant a lot." Cole smiled briefly and scanned the orders on his tablet. "Glad it did. Now, you're on bar duty this morning. I'll grab the next round of notes." Harper laughed softly. "So, am I your letter carrier now?" "Something like that." He ducked into the prep area. Harper's heartbeat fluttered. She placed her apron with new energy and prepped her steam wand. Tuesday. Harper arrived to find a single cappuccino by her register, frothed perfectly, foam leaf centered. The note read, "Even the tallest trees start from a seed. Keep growing." She tucked it into her apron pocket. The morning rush roared in, and she barely had time to process the words. But every time her confidence wavered, when she missed a latte mark or fumbling a register prompt, she slid her hand to the note and felt a small boost of reassurance. Wednesday. Cheery sunshine peeked through overcast clouds. Harper discovered a 4th note. "Pace yourself. Good things take time." It accompanied a cappuccino served to Mia. Harper watched Mia stare at the note mid-pour, then smile knowingly. Harper's barista mentor winked back, then shook her head in grateful surrender. That afternoon, Harper found herself lingering by the espresso machine, watching the steam rise. She felt Cole's presence before she saw him, a shadow falling across the tiled floor. He handed her a fresh piece of parchment. "Thank you for being you." He slipped away before she could reply. Harper clutched the note, foam art flecking her fingers, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe someone appreciated her precisely as she was. Thursday brought the first real test of her skills, the monthly latte art throwdown, a friendly contest among Redwood Roasters baristas. Harper had practiced heart, rosetta, and tulip patterns into the late hours. The cafe buzzed with anticipation as contestants lined up behind their stations. Cole watched from the sidelines, clipboard in hand, occasionally nodding approval. Harper's hands shook as she poured the steamed milk, her heart thudding to the rhythm of the pounding electronic music. She hesitated, then remembered Cole's note. "Pace yourself." She slowed her pour, concentrated on the swirl, and let the milk flow in a delicate rosetta. The crowd cheered, and Harper released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. After the contest, her colleagues rallied around her with high fives and laughter. Mia handed Harper a final cappuccino, foam leaf and all, and a note. "You nailed it. Proud of you." Harper looked up to see Cole's quiet smile. She realized the latte letters had become much more than morning niceties. They were her emotional compass, guiding her growth. Friday. Harper took a rare moment during a lull to review her growing collection of notes. They were pinned to the corkboard behind her register. "Good morning, sunshine. Rise and grind. Your hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Keep smiling. You make this place better. Even the tallest trees start from a seed. Keep growing. Pace yourself. Good things take time. Thank you for being you. You nailed it. Proud of you." She pressed her palm against the cork, the notes flickering in the warm lamplight. Each line had pushed her forward, bolstered her confidence, reaffirmed her efforts, reminded her to breathe. Whoever had orchestrated this had turned her ordinary shift into a journey of self-discovery. When Cole appeared, he traced the border of the corkboard with his fingertip. "You're looking at our unofficial staff bulletin," he said. "I think it's time to make it official." Harper blinked. "Official?" He nodded. "Starting next week, we'll post one daily note for the team. Something encouraging, something thoughtful. Your ideas are welcome, too." Harper felt her chest swell. She'd gone from latte collision culprit to integral part of their culture. "I'd love that," she said. Cole glanced away, mildly embarrassed by his own sincerity.
Great.
"And hey, enjoy your weekend. You've earned it." That weekend, Harper woke early to the hush of her apartment. Her phone buzzed. It was a photo from Mia. The corkboard now draped in colorful index cards, each with a handwritten note of encouragement. "See you Monday," the caption read. Harper wrapped herself in that charcoal gray scarf, Cole's gift, and poured herself a cappuccino of her own. She dabbed a rosetta into the foam and traced the pattern with her fingertip. As the warm mug nestled in her hands, she took a slow sip, tasting cherry, hazelnut, and a hint of something sweeter. She realized that the simple ritual of sharing a message over a cup of coffee had transformed more than her mornings. It had woven a culture of care through Redwood Roasters. And within that culture, she had found her place, one latte letter at a time. Cole Reed's parents had orchestrated the Seattle launch with the kind of quiet opulence that only family money can buy. When Harper Evans stepped off the company's shuttle onto Capitol Hill's slick pavement, she felt a buzz of anticipation and a flicker of unease. Today wasn't just another latte demo. Today was the grand opening of Redwood Roasters' flagship store, and she'd heard rumors that the Reed heirs themselves would make an appearance. But she still had no idea that, beneath the bright fairy lights and custom espresso bars, her manager Cole Reed was more than just a colleague. She navigated past sleek marble countertops and up polished concrete steps to the rooftop terrace, which offered a stunning view of Elliott Bay. An elegant bar had been erected along the terrace's edge, its surface gleaming with rows of branded tumblers and limited-edition Seattle Blend bagged beans. A soft hush fell over the crowd of local food bloggers, city council members, and media influencers as cameras swiveled in a slow arc, focusing on the stage set against the Seattle skyline. Mia intercepted Harper at the demo station. "You ready?" she whispered, handing her the first carafe of single-origin Costa Rican pour-over. "They want to see that beautiful bloom you perfected." Harper's stomach tightened. "I'm ready," she lied, adjusting her Redwood Roasters team pin. Her gaze drifted to the central podium, where three figures emerged. Marcus Reed, founder and chairman, exuded calm authority in a tailored wool blazer. Beside him, Julia Reed, his wife and co-founder, wore an elegant emerald dress and surveyed the scene with a practiced smile. And between them stood Cole, shoulders squared, eyes bright. As the cameras clicked, Marcus tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to Redwood Roasters Seattle." His voice carried across the terrace. "We're thrilled to bring our passion for craft coffee to this incredible city. But before we cut the ribbon, I'd like to introduce the person who ensures every cup meets our highest standards." Heads turned, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus gestured at his son. "Cole, would you join me?" Cole stepped forward, dew of nervous sweat beading on his brow. He offered the microphone a cautious tap. "Thanks, Dad." "Thanks, Mom." His usual composure flickered as he surveyed the eager faces before him. "I started at Redwood Roasters as a barista. I learned every shift, morning rushes, latte art challenges, group orders. Because I believe a leader must know every corner of the craft." A ripple of applause greeted his words. Harper felt a surge of pride, but also a flash of uncertainty. Had she misjudged him all along? Marcus produced a ceremonial pair of scissors glinting under fairy lights. "Shall we?" he asked. Cole nodded, and together they snipped the ribbon, silk and company colors, amid a cascade of confetti. The terrace erupted in cheers. Harper dashed forward to resume her cappuccino demo, heat rising in her cheeks. She poured each shot with precision, sculpting rosettas into perfect foam canopies. The audience applauded each cup she placed before them. But beneath the thrill of the demonstration, her mind churned with questions. How had she never known Cole's family tie? He'd refused special treatment, insisted on earning every shift. But what else had he kept hidden? After the ribbon cutting, guests flooded the new cafe. Harper and Mia moved swiftly, serving espresso flights and tasting trays. Harper noticed two journalists whispering near the espresso machine. She strained to hear. Did you hear? Read as air doing barista work.
Yeah.
Family head running demos. Talk about humility. Their astonishment stung. Harper felt a jolt of betrayal, wondering if every encouraging note he'd slipped into her cappuccinos had been some orchestrated PR ploy to soften his family image. She set down a tray with trembling hands. Cole reappeared, clipboard in hand. He guided VIPs through the roasting station demonstration, his manner radiant. Harper retreated to a quieter corner behind the counter, heart racing. That's when he intercepted her path. Harper, everything all right? He asked, voice low, concerned. She folded her arms. Your family, why didn't you tell me? The words burst out despite her attempts to stay calm. I thought we worked together as equals. Cole's face registered shock. The din of conversation faded around them. I wanted you to know me first. Not as the founder's son, but as a fellow barista. Then why let me believe otherwise? She pressed, voice unsteady. Those notes, the scarf, the umbrella in the rain. Was that all calculated? His shoulders slumped.
No.
Those were for you, for your talent and kindness. I never considered my last name when I wrote them. I considered you. Harper studied his eyes. Earnest, vulnerable, sincere. She recalled the first latte letter. Good morning, sunshine, and remembered the warmth it brought. She recalled the scarf, the umbrella, the weather wars they'd negotiated. She realized the gestures had spoken volumes when words felt impossible. I'm sorry I snapped, she said softly. I just felt surprised. And maybe a little foolish. Cole closed the distance. You're not foolish. You're one of the best baristas I know. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I respect you, your drive, your heart. Family name or not, you deserve that respect. Harper exhaled, tension releasing. Thank you, she whispered. Can we just move past this? He nodded, relief flickering in his gaze. Past this. They returned to the demo station as a cluster of guests approached, eager for tastings. Side by side, they poured affogatos and signature lattes, the earlier tremor between them dissolving in the rhythm of espresso shots. Later, as twilight settled over the terrace, Harper spotted Julia and Marcus approaching again. She braced herself, expecting formalities. But Julia smiled warmly, extending her hand. Harper, may I? She asked, nodding toward the cappuccino Harper had just crafted. Harper offered the cup. Julia inhaled the aroma, then handed it back. It's exquisite, she said quietly. Turning to Marcus, she smiled. Our daughter-in-law skills are almost as impressive as her husband's humility. Harper's breath caught, a slip of the tongue that signified acceptance into the family circle, even if only informally. Cole looked startled, then laughed softly. A genuine sound that bridged the gap between heir and associate. As Redwood Roasters Seattle wound down, Harper found herself standing beside Cole at the terrace rail. Beyond them, the city lights sparkled like scattered coffee grounds. He offered her a final latte from the day, a special Seattle roast she'd never tried. She sipped, savoring citrus brightness and dark chocolate undertones. Cole watched her. So, how do we celebrate this victory? Harper smiled, scanning the illuminated skyline. With more coffee, of course. He laughed and lifted his cup. To family, chosen and given. To chosen family, she echoed, clinking cups. In that moment, the air between them felt lighter, freed from unspoken secrets. Under Seattle's fading sunset, the air and the barista stood as equals, united by coffee, by trust, and by the promise of honest collaboration. The mid-morning sun shone bright over Portland, but Harper Evans felt a chill that had nothing to do with weather. It began with a single, anonymous email she received as she stepped into her Salem apartment, a series of photographs and a brief message reading, "Open your eyes." She hesitated in the entryway, groceries in hand, bread, basil, oat milk, before tapping the attachment. The first image showed Cole Reed walking swiftly down a quiet street with Naomi Brooks, his arm around her shoulders as she winced in pain. In the next frame, Naomi clutched her side, her face paling, as Cole guided her toward the unmarked entrance of Providence, St. Vincent Hospital. The final shot, taken from a discreet distance, showed them disappearing behind frosted glass doors, the kind reserved for emergency triage. Harper's breath caught. She scrolled backward, heart pounding. There were no timestamps, no clear context, only the implication of an illicit rendezvous between her manager and his close colleague. Naomi's tan cardigan hung off one shoulder. Her expression was soft, almost grateful, as Cole supported her. Had he been comforting her romantically? She slammed her phone onto the counter, the lens of her living room windows blurred by sudden tears. If she trusted him enough to share an umbrella, scarf, encouragement, how easily could trust unravel with a few cautious snapshots? The fight they'd just resolved over his family background paled in comparison to this. She felt the sting of betrayal pulse through her veins. Rather than call Cole, reconcile face-to-face, Harper shoved her groceries aside and slipped into her raincoat.
There was no answering him now.
She grabbed the keys to her Subaru Outback and left Salem in a haze of hurt and confusion. The drive back to Portland was a blur of headlights and highway signs: Milwaukee, Gladstone, I-5 North, downtown. Every song on the radio felt like a personal accusation. By the time she reached Redwood Roasters, the sky had darkened with brooding clouds. She parked behind the cafe, its neon redwood sign glowing in the dusk. Inside, the afternoon rush was just beginning. Clatter of cups, hiss of steam wands, ringing bell at the entrance. She slipped in quietly, avoiding the casual greeting of Mia, who looked up anxiously. Harper slid behind the counter before anyone truly noticed her. Everything felt surreal and amplified. The whir of the grinders, the polished gleam of the espresso machines, the stray drop of milk foam on her apron. Mia approached, concern in her eyes. "Harper, you look like you've seen a ghost. You okay?" Harper managed a tight smile. "Just another long day. I'll handle the bar." She reached for a used pitcher, her hand shaking. Mia pressed her lips together, but said nothing more. Moments later, Naomi Brooks breezed in from the back room, wiping her palm on a towel. "Hey, Quinn asked if I could cover server duty," she said brightly. "He's down a staffer. No biggie, right?" Harper's fists clenched. Every nerve screamed, "Leave. Don't let her near him." But the customers, unaware, formed a steady queue for new cold brews. She had to work, had to see this through. The door swung open again, and Cole stepped in, as if drawn by gravity to his baristas. He scanned the room, spotted Harper, and offered a tentative grin. "Hey, thought I'd grab a quick Americano before my shift." Harper's stomach clenched. How could he be so calm? Surely he'd get an explanation and apology. She forced herself to nod and tapped the grinder into motion.
"Sure.
Just give me a sec." Cole leaned against the counter, watching her. Naomi joined him with a folder in hand, oblivious to Harper's awareness of their hospital run. They exchanged business updates, new Seattle numbers, adjustments on the upcoming spring menu. Intimate but strictly professional. Harper's jaw clenched at every laugh, every shared glance. She tamped the puck of freshly ground beans with more force than necessary. Steam hissed as she engaged the wand. Heart pounding, she prepared his Americano. Once the cup was ready, dark, rich, she slid it across the counter. Cole lifted it, wiping condensation from the lip. "Thanks," he said. Their eyes met in the narrow space above the cup. His gaze held warmth and a hint of confusion. Harper swallowed, voice low. Can I talk to you in back? Cole glanced at Naomi, who offered an encouraging nod. He set his cup aside and followed Harper through the swinging kitchen door. In the cramped back room, the air smelled of roasted beans and cleaning solution. Instruments of the trade lined the stainless steel counters. Harper rubbed her temples. I got these pictures, she began, voice shaking. She held out her phone, swiping to the hospital images. Cole's expression darkened as he reached for the phone. In a second, he'd flipped through the frames. I help her, he said quietly. She's allergic to dairy, didn't want to risk a reaction. She went into anaphylactic shock at home. I ran her to the ER. His voice grew steady, urgent. It wasn't an affair. I was saving her life. Harper stepped back, disbelief warring with guilt. Saving. Her voice cracked. You did all that? His jaw tightened.
Yes.
I know how it looks. But the photos don't show context. They show one moment, me helping her into Tria. The rest, how her mother couldn't drive, how she needed someone she trusted. None of that's in the pictures. Silent miles stretched between them. The clink of dishes from the cafe front filtered through the wall. Harper placed a hand on the cool stainless steel. I saw them, she whispered, as if confessing to a crime. And I didn't believe you. Cole's shoulders sagged. I get that. But you should have called me first.
His voice softened.
Harper, I didn't hide it. I never thought someone would capture those moments out of context. She closed her eyes, tears burning behind her lids. Moments ago, she'd fled her own hometown, convinced of betrayal.
Now,
standing in the fluorescent glare of the back room, she realized the depth of her mistake. I'm
sorry.
I thought. He reached out, gently guiding her phone back into her hand. You thought the worst. But let's be honest, we both know I wouldn't risk my career, my integrity, or my feelings for you by doing something shady. His reference to their budding trust hung between them like steam. Harper wiped her cheeks. I let gossip get to me. I should have asked you. He nodded. We all make assumptions. But you did come back. That means a lot. Cole paused, measuring his next words. Do you want to finish your shift? Harper exhaled, drawing in a shaky breath. I need a moment. She turned and fled past him, through the cafe, down the stairs, and into the settling dusk. The cool air slammed against her face. She gripped her phone, replaying his words. I ran her to the ER. Her Subaru waited in the employee lot. She slid in, doors locking behind her. The engine roared to life. She drove south, past the first exit, then the second, until she reached Salem's familiar streets. When her apartment building came into view, her heart sank with relief and regret. Inside her living room, Harper sank onto the couch. Phone warm against her knee. She drafted a message to Cole. I'm sorry. Thank you for saving her. I'll explain in person. But her fingers hovered over the screen. Instead, she deleted the draft and stared at the blank field. Rain began to patter the window, a subtle reminder that misunderstandings, like storms, can roll in without warning. Harper exhaled, bracing herself for what came next. She knew apologies were best spoken aloud. Tomorrow, she'd return to Portland, and to the truth of what really happened. Tonight, she let the rain wash away her doubts, one drop at a time. 25 years had passed since Harper Evans first donned a maroon apron at Redwood Roasters. Now at 48, she stood once more on the familiar polished wood floor of the original Portland cafe, though time had aged the walls and the scent of coffee felt softer, more nostalgic. Outside, the rain fell in characteristic Pacific Northwest sheets. Inside, the glow of Edison bulbs cast warm halos over reclaimed wood tables. Harper tucked her charcoal gray scarf tight around her neck and pushed through the glass door, the bell chiming a gentle welcome that felt like an old friend's greeting. She paused, taking in the scene. The espresso machine gleamed under the ambient lights, its polished metal panels reflecting back a woman who had grown from eager barista to seasoned cafe owner. The counter was set for a late afternoon rush. Cups lined up on the speed rail, syrups neatly arranged in rainbow order. and a small corkboard clasped with handwritten latte letters, encouraging the staff. The tradition she'd once helped spark lived on, testament to how far they'd come. Behind the counter, a familiar figure sat in a wheelchair by the cleaning station. Cole Reed, once her manager, now 81 years old, yet still bearing the graceful posture she remembered. His salt and pepper hair had silvered further. Lines at the corners of his eyes had deepened like riverbeds etched by time. He looked up, his eyes locking onto hers with a mixture of wonder and longing, rediscovering a face he had not truly seen since that final, stormy day a quarter-century ago. Harper. His voice trembled, a soft rasp that testified to the stroke he'd suffered 5 years earlier. He reached a hand toward her, frail but earnest. Harper closed the distance in 3 strides, her heart pounding as if she were 19 again. "Cole," she whispered, drawing his hand into both of hers. "It's me. I'm here." He blinked, his head tilting, as if to clear fog. I almost didn't recognize you." A tremor passed through his lips, and a single tear escaped, tracing a line down his cheek. "You came back." She knelt beside him, brushing the damp tear away. How could I not? Her own tears welled, blurring the cafe lights into halos. "You saved so much. You taught me everything I know about coffee. More than that, you cared when I needed it most." She paused, trembling. "I'm so sorry I left you alone." Cole studied her face, searching for the youthful resolve he once saw. Life got messy," he said slowly. "But your face, your voice brings back everything." His other hand trembled as it rested on the polished counter. "Let's not waste time." Behind them, Naomi Brooks, now 53 and hair streaked with silver, emerged from the back room. She wore a simple gray sweater and carried a small bouquet of fresh basil sprigs, the symbol of Harper's original move to Salem. Naomi paused at the entrance, eyes glistening. She approached with hesitant steps, recalling how easily she had once become caught in rumors and misunderstandings. Now those missteps felt like shadows fading in morning light. Cole looked up at Naomi. "Naomi," he said, voice thick with memory. "You're here too." Naomi inhaled deeply. "I never meant—" Her voice broke. She set the basil on the counter, next to a lineup of single-origin beans that represented each major milestone in their coffee journey. "I never meant to hurt you. I was scared of my own loneliness, and I leaned on you." She swallowed. "I'm sorry for everything." Harper rose, placing one hand on Naomi's shoulder. "We were young. We made mistakes. But look at us now." She turned back to Cole. "We have the chance to make it right." Cole wheeled himself forward, the soft hum of the wheelchair's motor drawing attention from a few late-shift staff members. He placed his hands on theirs. "You both taught me what matters. Coffee, community, care." He paused, emotion catching his breath. "I forgive you both." Tears welled in Naomi's eyes as she knelt on the floor beside Harper. "And I forgive you, Harper, for doubting you." She glanced at Harper and smiled through her tears. "You were always true." The 3 embraced in a circle of gratitude and renewal beneath the warm cafe lights. Around them, the late afternoon rush tapered to a hush. A single barista approached, placing a freshly poured cappuccino topped with a delicate rosetta leaf before each of them, a silent gesture acknowledging their shared legacy. On each saucer lay a small handwritten note in Harper's flowing script, "Together again, stronger than ever." Harper lifted her cup, inhaling the rich aroma. "To us," she said softly. Cole and Naomi echoed in unison. They sipped, the foam leaving soft rings on their lips, a gentle reminder of life's cyclical nature. Harper stood, brushing tears from her cheeks. She surveyed the cafe, now a tapestry of memories, the framed photographs of that Seattle launch, faded latte letter notes from Mia's Corral, the original coffee bar that had cradled her nervous first days. She turned to Cole and Naomi. "Let's get back to work," she said, voice firm with purpose. "We've got lattes to make and stories to share." Cole's eyes lit with that familiar spark. "Lead the way," he said, wheeling himself toward the espresso machine. Naomi followed on Harper's other side, basil bouquet in hand, ready to restock the herb station one more time. In the gentle hum of redwood roasters, the three of them settled into their roles: teacher, student, friend, reunited at last. The aroma of freshly ground beans rose up, a fragrant testament to endurance and forgiveness.
Outside.
The rain susurrated against the windows, but here, in this sanctuary of steam and light, the past had been reconciled, and a new chapter of warmth and community began. And that brings us to the end of today's story on TrueStory Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.